Welcome to our channel, all friends. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe my channel and press the bell icon to stay update for new videos. Thanks. Let's start new video. I rushed to the park as soon as I received her first call, but what she said there was enough to leave me utterly shocked. She spoke an absurd sentence and then fell silent while I stood there staring at her in astonishment. How could a girl talk like this? At first, I thought I had misheard her, but when she repeated the same words, a shiver ran down my spine. Why did she want this, especially when there were only 2 days left until our wedding? Her desire was shocking to me. When I asked her, "Are you in your senses? What are you saying, and what kind of wish is this? Why do you want to be intimate before our wedding?" She simply replied, "I just feel like it." I tried to make her understand, just control your feelings for 2 days. After that, we will belong to each other completely. We are about to tie the sacred knot. Why are you tempting me towards something forbidden? Do you realize that before marriage, this act is considered a sin, whether our wedding is in 2 days or 2 hours? After marriage, whenever you desire, you can come to me. I will always be there for you. But now, why are you being stubborn about this? Why are you trying to force me into something sinful? But she insisted right there in the park. I want to have you now. I want to be close to you at this very moment. I am helpless. Please try to understand my compulsion. I couldn't understand what kind of helplessness she was talking about. There were only 2 days left until our wedding. I tried to reason with her, but she was adamant. She wanted to be with me no matter what. However, I firmly refused. I will not do anything that would displease my Lord. You are my pure love. I have waited 2 years to have you in my life. I will not ruin these 2 years of patience by committing a sin now. She simply said, "Then don't regret it later, and don't blame me, saying I didn't warn you. The choice is yours." After saying this, she left the park without looking back, while I stood there frozen in place, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Our wedding was just 2 days away, yet my fiancée was telling me she wanted to be intimate with me. She had come prepared, planning to book a hotel room where we could spend time together. But my refusal forced her to leave. I couldn't understand why she was insisting on this. We had been in love for 2 years. She was my uncle's daughter. Our families were the same. She was a very modest and religious girl, and that was what I loved about her the most. Her piety had always attracted me. For 2 years, she had always maintained a distance from me while talking. But today, her strange reasoning had completely shaken me. I sat alone in the park for a long time, lost in thought, trying to figure out what to do next. Zenat's words had unsettled me. I had rejected her outright, yet I regretted not asking her why. I knew she was lying when she said it was just a desire. No virtuous girl would willingly destroy her own honor just because of a passing urge. There was definitely a much deeper secret behind her request, one she was unwilling to reveal. Her last words echoed in my mind, carving themselves into my thoughts. Her words, "You'll regret this later," left me feeling anxious and uneasy. What secret was she hiding that would only be revealed after intimacy? I sat alone in the park for a long time, but when my unease grew, I decided to go home. At home, the atmosphere was completely different. Everyone was busy with the wedding preparations. Some were playing the dolak, others were dancing, while I sat with a troubled expression, consumed by a different worry. I had been helping with the Mayan preparations, sitting with my friends, when Zenat's call came in. She sounded panicked and insisted that I meet her at the nearby park. "I'm coming to meet you under the pretense of going to the parlor. Please meet me," she urged. At first, I refused. "No, this isn't appropriate. The wedding is only 2 days away. At this time, both the bride and groom must maintain purdah from each other." But she didn't listen to my concerns and insisted I come immediately. Zenat's words had always meant a lot to me, so I prioritized her request and rushed to the park. But once I got there, I was completely shocked by what she said. Now, sitting silently in my room, I shook my head in disbelief. I had no words left to say to anyone. Even outside, my aunt gestured for me to join her, but I used exhaustion as an excuse and stayed in my room. I was lost in thoughts of Zenat when suddenly my best friend Jamshid sat down beside me. His sudden appearance startled me. He placed a hand on my shoulder, grinning. "So, how was your meeting with your sister-in-law?" I turned to look at him in shock. No one was supposed to know about this. When I had left the house, I had told everyone I was going out for some work and would return soon. But hearing Jamshed say this turned my face pale. He playfully punched my cheek and laughed. "What did you think? I wouldn't find out? I've got my eyes on you, Salah. Now tell me, what did you and your sister-in-law talk about?" I stared at him in disbelief. "How do you know I went to meet Zinat?" He chuckled. "I overheard your conversation when you were talking to her on the phone." He continued teasing me. "Man, your sister-in-law has quite a hold on you. You were refusing, but with just one command from her, you rushed to meet her." He kept making jokes, but I didn't feel any happiness. Just a little while ago, I had been so excited. After 2 long years, my love was finally going to become mine through marriage. But now all my joy had been replaced with anxiety. I sat there silently, lost in my thoughts. Jamshed, noticing my quietness, grew serious and asked, "What's going on?" I hesitated, unsure if I should tell him. But after thinking for a moment, I decided to share a censored version of the events. His reaction mirrored mine, complete shock. "What kind of desire can't be controlled for just 2 more days?" he asked. "Something is definitely off. Otherwise, why would she be insisting on this now?" Jamshed's words echoed in my mind. I too started having uneasy thoughts. I turned to look at him and after some thought, shared an idea. Hearing it, he nodded in agreement. At that moment, I became certain something was definitely wrong. Otherwise, why would Zinat be demanding intimacy before marriage? After a while, Jamshed looked at me and said, "No, man, Zinat, sister-in-law, is quite innocent and has a pure nature. She's a very modest woman. She can't do something like that. Maybe we're misunderstanding her. There's definitely something else going on here." As soon as he said that, I was irritated and replied, "Then what is it? You tell me. The wedding is just 2 days away, and in these 2 days, she wants to be intimate with me? Something is definitely off. If she really wanted to be with me, why didn't she ask for this after our engagement? But why now, just 2 days before the wedding?" My question is pretty solid. Jamshid nodded slightly and said, "You're right, but because of her simple nature, I can't say much." We both sat there for a long time trying to figure things out, but neither of us came to any conclusion. After a while, he got up and left the room, and I was left in a strange state of confusion, wondering what could have made her willing to do this. I thought for a moment and then called Zinat. Her mother answered the phone. After exchanging greetings, I asked about Zinat. Her mother said that some of Zinat's friends were over and she was upstairs. "If you want, I can have her talk to you." After thinking for a moment, I declined and decided to lie down in my room. I still couldn't understand what was going on. I'd barely laid down when my phone rang. I looked at the screen and it was Zinat calling. Seeing her name made me sit up straight. I wasn't sure what I was going to say to her. When I answered, there was silence on the other end. This had never happened before. Even when we argued, we always spoke to each other, but today, neither of us said anything. After a few moments, I ended the call and put my phone on the side table. I wanted to clear my mind, so I went outside and sat in the fresh air. The calm outside atmosphere helped me relax a little. Later that night, when I met Jamshed again, he started asking me the same questions. But this time I shut him up because I didn't want to focus on this matter anymore. Jamshed kept probing, but I was firm and told him to stop, which made him quiet. Time passed and the days went by quickly. Before I knew it, the day of my wedding had arrived. My barat was only moments away from leaving. As I stood there, ready to be married, my mind was still occupied with the things Zinat had said to me in the park. My heart was heavy with confusion. I didn't know what secret would be revealed today. A little while later, my barat, with all the music and excitement, left for the wedding venue. At home, everyone seemed happy, so I chose to ignore Zinat's words. But when we arrived at the venue, another story unfolded. Zinat's mother and sisters were acting strangely. They didn't seem as welcoming as I had expected, and our reception was rather minimal. Zinat's mother and sisters seemed distant, as if something was off. In the course of conversation, Zinat's mother made a comment to my mother and sisters saying, "You haven't raised your son properly." We are only silent because of our daughter, but we are totally against this wedding." My mother and sisters were shocked by their sudden attitude, but for the sake of respect, they stayed quiet. After completing a few rituals, Zenat's departure from her family was arranged. Once we got home, some more rituals took place, and Zenat was seated in my room. As I was about to enter my room, my mother called me into hers. I felt a bit uneasy, but as always, I respected my mother's call and went to her room. She was sitting on the bed, looking very upset. I knew she would be complaining about my mother-in-law and sisters-in-law. I mentally prepared myself for it and sat close to her. As I expected, my mother began her complaints. I decided to stay silent and listen. After a while, when she realized that it was my wedding night, she sighed and became quiet. She then told me to go to my room. As soon as she gave me permission, I rushed out of her room and headed straight to mine. As soon as I entered the room, the fragrance of rose petals filled the air. I pushed all my thoughts aside and looked at my bed, where Zenat, in her full rights as my wife, was sitting. I smiled at her and greeted her loudly, to which she responded with a slight nod of her head. I took slow steps and sat next to her. I couldn't be thankful enough to Allah for granting me my love. I had always heard that people never get their first love, but I was grateful that Allah had blessed me with mine. I smiled and took Zenat's hand. After exchanging some loving words, I tried to kiss her hand. However, just as I was about to kiss her hand, Zenat pulled away from me as if I were a stranger. This moment was very confusing for me. She had been begging me to come closer, but now when I wanted to be close to her, she was distancing herself from me. In a burst of frustration, I shouted, "What is this? Why are you behaving like this? When I wasn't your mahram, you came to me, but now when I'm legally and rightfully yours, you're pushing me away." She kept shaking her head in denial while sobbing. I pulled her veil back from her face, and as soon as I saw her expression, my heart melted. I instinctively pulled her into my arms, but as soon as I held her close, Zenat started crying uncontrollably. I couldn't understand why she was crying. Gently, I ran my hand through her hair, trying to soothe her. I asked softly, "Tell me, why did you want this? Why did you want to be with me?" Through her sobs, she repeated one thing over and over again. "I told you I wanted to spend some time with you, but you never listened to my plea, and you sent me away. I wish you had asked me why I wanted this. Now, why do you want to come close to me when I'm ruined? I have nothing left for you." Her words made the ground beneath me feel like it was slipping away. I understood the deeper meaning of what she was saying. I wasn't a child who couldn't understand her words. She buried her face in her knees, crying as if her whole world had shattered. I felt like the ground was sinking beneath me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After a short while, when I regained my senses, I suddenly became enraged. I grabbed Zenat's arm firmly and, staring into her red eyes, growled in anger, "Who have you stained your honor with, shameless woman? Didn't you feel any shame? You couldn't wait for 2 days and acted like this? What's this fire that was burning inside you?" I was furious. My heart wanted to slap her face until it turned red. My pride had awakened. She was sitting in front of me as my wife, and I couldn't accept this. When she heard my words, she immediately pushed me away and began crying. Through her tears, she said, "This is all you're doing. There's no point in being angry now." As she spoke, my mind was spinning, and I couldn't believe what she was saying. I insisted, "No, this can't be true. You must be mistaken." But the truth in her words became clear, and I realized she wasn't lying. Zenat laid everything out in front of me, saying F's friend, Jamshed, had been harassing me for days. "I told you many times that I didn't like him, but you brushed it off with laughter." I was fed up. I blocked several of his numbers, but he kept sending me messages from new numbers, threatening me with absurd things. He told me that he would turn you against me, and one day you would leave me for him. He said that he would marry me instead of you. I had always disliked his messages. I had decided I would tell you everything, but when I warned Jamshed, he said, "If you tell anyone on your wedding day, your fiancé will bring his bra to your door but won't step inside. And that's when you'll see." I became terrified. I knew that you valued Jamshed's words. I became very scared, which is why I didn't talk to you much in the days leading up to the wedding. This is why we fought so much. All of this was coming back to me now. It made sense because often Jamshed would badmouth Zinat to me and try to provoke me, but I ignored him because I knew Zinat's character very well. I had listened to everything she said and responded, "Fine, I accept that Jamshed was bothering you and sending you strange messages and that you wanted to tell me, but you stayed silent because you didn't want to disturb me. But why did you say such terrible things to me in the park?" "I still don't understand that." Zinat's response left me speechless. She said, "In the last few days before the wedding, Jamshed started harassing me. He insisted that he would spend the wedding night with me no matter what. I was scared because he began coming to our house. He said that whatever I liked would always end up with you. And this time, he wanted to get me before you did. In his jealousy, he crossed all boundaries." I was now devastated. Zenit continued, "I was afraid that your mark, your name, wouldn't be the only one I would carry. He wanted to leave his mark on me instead. That's why that day in the park, I spoke about being intimate with you. But instead of understanding me, you dismissed me and sent me away. I respected your way of thinking, but unfortunately, your friend Jamshed took advantage of the situation. After we came home, when you told Jamshed everything, his eyes lit up. On my way back, he kidnapped me halfway and took me to a hotel where he forced himself on me. I cried, pleaded, and begged him to stop, saying I was your trust. I was your fiancé. But he didn't listen to a word I said and dishonored me in that hotel room. He tarnished my dignity. My mother and sisters treated you poorly because they believed it was you who took me to that hotel. My life is ruined now. I have nothing left to give you. If you hadn't told Jamshed about us, his feelings for me would have never awakened." I felt like I was sinking into the ground after hearing Zenat's words. She was telling the truth, and everything made sense. After coming home, I had told Jamshed some things, and now I could feel my anger rising. I knew exactly where he was. In a fit of rage, I stood up and left the house, intending to confront Jamshed and beat him. But my mind worked quickly, and I decided to go straight to the police station instead. There, I filed a case against Jamshed for what he had done to my wife. The case was immediately processed. Zenat was shocked and couldn't understand why I was doing this. In her view, I should have already divorced her, but I didn't. I knew this was all my fault. If I hadn't told Jamshed about Zenat, none of this would have happened. I was responsible for everything. Through the police, I made sure Jamshed was punished severely, but I kept this matter a secret, as I couldn't let anyone know about it. It would have only brought shame on me. Zenat was my honor, and I couldn't bear anyone disrespecting her. This was the toughest time of my life. For so long, I had been waiting for the moment when everything would go wrong, and now that it had come, it brought so much pain. My best friend had stabbed me in the back. My love had been trampled by my own friend's hands. Overwhelmed by so much misery, I was in a state of shock. So, the very next day after the wedding, I booked tickets and insisted on taking Zenat to the northern area. I knew that if we stayed there any longer, everyone would figure out the true nature of our relationship. In this open space, Zenat realized my love for her, and I tried to heal her wounds. As time passed, I earned my place back in Zenat's heart. She told her family the whole truth about what had happened and how Jamshed was responsible for everything. Her family was grateful to me for not abandoning her in such difficult circumstances. They saw my honesty, and soon they forgave me. We started living a peaceful, happy life together.